Max Pree often spoke about the importance of honoring the unique gifts of each person. One of the most poignant examples of this philosophy in action comes from his own personal life. In the early 1980s, Max's granddaughter was born prematurely, weighing just over 1 pound. The baby's survival depended on advanced neonatal care and a specialized incubator. The medical staff worked tirelessly to save her life, and after months of care, she finally grew strong enough to go home. During this emotional time, Max was profoundly moved by the work of the doctors, nurses, and medical professionals who had poured their skills and dedication into serving and saving a fragile life. Reflecting on this experience, he shared a conversation with one of the nurses who had cared for his granddaughter. He asked her what kept her motivated in such an intense and challenging environment. Her response was simple, yet deeply profound. Every day, I get the chance to use my gifts to help someone else. Max realized that this perspective aligned perfectly with how organizations should function. Just as that nurse brought her unique skills to care for his granddaughter, leaders must create environments where people can bring their talents, passions, and humanity to their work. He believed this was the ultimate responsibility of leadership, to help others find meaning and purpose in their contributions. So Max took this lesson back to Herman Miller, where he reinforced the company's commitment to valuing each employee as a unique individual. He believed that organizations thrive when leaders focus on serving their people, enabling them to use their gifts to contribute to something greater than themselves. This story is not just about leadership in the corporate world. It's a reminder that leadership starts with recognizing the humanity in others and creating space for them to flourish. It's a powerful example of how personal experiences can shape a leader's vision, making their impact profound and deeply personal. With that, welcome back to Leaders, a podcast dedicated to exploring the best leaders this world has ever seen. That opening story was on today's subject of episode 41, Max Pree, the former founder, his father was the former founder, but former CEO of Herman Miller. And lots of what we will take from his leadership style and lessons in leadership is derived directly from his book, Leadership is an Art, which was read and will be referenced here within the episode. And so Max is the son of DJ Pree, who is the founder of Herman Miller Office Furniture Company. He and his brother Hugh assumed leadership of the company in the early 1960s, with Hugh becoming CEO and president in 1962. Max succeeded his brother Hugh as CEO in 1980, served in that capacity till 1987, and was a member of the company's board of directors until 1995. Max's father established Herman Miller Company Furniture Manufacturers as a family-owned business in 1947 following the service in the U.S. Army during World War II, including as a combat medic during a portion of the Battle of the Bulge. DJ Pree began working for the Herman Miller Company. He served as CEO from 1980 to 1987, remaining on the board again until 95. He established it as one of the best managed companies in America. The company innovated in design, hiring or working with a number of cutting-edge designers. Herman Miller adopted the Scanlon management plan in 1950, which distinguished the company through his tenure as CEO. Max has written a number of books and articles on the subject of leadership, beginning with that Leadership is an Art in 1987, Called to Serve, Creating and Nurturing the Effective Volunteer Board in 2001, and Leading Without Power, Finding Hope in Serving Community in 2003. The Max Pree Center for Leadership at the Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, is named in recognition of his reputation in the area of leadership and his decades-long commitment to that seminary. He received the International Leadership Association Lifetime Achievement Award also in 2012. And so that, just to give you a little bit of background on who Max was, and now let's go more into what shaped his leadership. And so he, first and foremost, I think, fostered the idea of an inclusive corporation, one in which all voices are heard. He was known for his efforts to combine a caring organization with lots of business success. As opposed to the idea of a golden parachute, he also proposed the idea of a silver parachute, in which terminated employees who had worked more than 2 years for a company would receive benefits according to the number of years served. He also established concepts such as servant leadership and inclusive capitalism that have become deeply rooted in culture today. He encouraged open communication in the organization. He was often heard to say, err on the side of over-communication. And one of the more lasting quotes was that the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. In between, the leader is a servant. So definitely believes, and we've heard about this through other leaders that we have studied, but the idea of exhibiting servant leadership and really about committing yourself to that and having the responsibility to own that, and being at the CEO position, a great responsibility that comes with that. With what comes with that too is integrity. So many people have written about its connection to leadership, he says. We know that integrity is one of the preserving principles of the free market system. Most of us understand that integrity is a principle that serves society, not simply a utilitarian concept subject to the whim of a single person. It is not a quality that changes to keep those in positions of leadership comfortable. Our media are replete with stories of the consequences of leaders who have failed to hold themselves accountable. This lack of integrity is nourished by the inability of some leaders to understand the function of self-restraint in a civilized society. Integrity, how simple, how profound. Now, the main concepts and book here, Leadership is an Art. So what does he call, or how does he describe the art of leadership? He knows from his experience that it is not a leader's strong voice, the snap of his whip, or his trendy TV persona that motivates employees. The art of leadership, as Max says, is liberating people to do what is required of them in the most effective and humane way possible. Thus, the leader is the servant of his followers in that he removes the obstacles that prevent them from doing their jobs. In short, the true leader enables his or her followers to realize their full potential. Leaders will have the self-confidence, as Max says, to encourage contrary opinions and to abandon themselves to the strengths of others. In short, the true leader is also a listener. The leader listens to the ideas, needs, aspirations, and wishes of the followers, and then, within the context of his or her well-developed system of beliefs, responds to these in an appropriate fashion. That is why the leader must know his own mind. That is why leadership requires ideas, and that is what the book Leadership is an Art is, a compendium of ideas about organizational leadership. So when we think about leaders and the variety of gifts people bring to corporations and institutions, we see that the art of leadership lies in polishing and liberating and enabling those gifts. The progress of an artful leader is really summated within that quote that we said before. So the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. And then in between those two, the leader is a servant and a debtor. The signs of outstanding leadership also appear primarily amongst the followers of that leader. Are the followers reaching their potential? Are they learning? Serving? Do they achieve the required results? Do they change with grace? Manage conflict? So, leadership and the art there, in terms of future leaders, those are not easy questions to deal with. Leaders are also responsible for future leadership. They need to identify, develop, and nurture future leaders. The art of leadership dwells a good deal in the future, in providing for the future of the organization, in planting and growing others who will look to the future beyond their own. The organization also requires several things from the people chosen to be candidates for the future leaders. These people must bring to their responsibilities certain characteristics, traits that should be present in all leaders, traits talked about in this book. A future leader has these set of qualities: has consistent and dependable integrity, cherishes heterogeneity and diversity, searches out competence, is open to contrary opinion, communicates easily at all levels, understands the concept of equity and consistently advocates it, leads through serving, is vulnerable to the skills and talents of others, is intimate with the organization and its work, is able to see the broad picture beyond his or her own area of focus, is a spokesperson and diplomat, can be a tribal storyteller, an important way of transmitting corporate culture, and finally tells why rather than how. Momentum is another thing within leaders too. Leaders are obligated to provide and maintain momentum. Leadership comes with a lot of debts to the future. There are more immediate obligations as well. Momentum is one. Momentum in a vital company is palpable. It is not abstract or mysterious. It is the feeling among a group of people that their lives and work are intertwined and moving toward a recognizable and legitimate goal. It begins with competent leadership and a management team strongly dedicated to aggressive managerial development and opportunities. This team's job is to provide an environment that allows momentum to gather. Momentum comes from a clear vision of what the corporation ought to be, from a well-thought-out strategy to achieve that vision, and from carefully conceived and communicated directions and plans that enable everyone to participate and be publicly accountable in achieving those plans. Leaders are also responsible for effectiveness. Much has been written about effectiveness, some, the best of it, by Peter Drucker, who will serve as a mentor to Max. He has such a great ability to simplify concepts. One of the things he tells us is that efficiency is doing the right thing right, but effectiveness is doing the right thing. Participative management guarantees that decisions will not be arbitrary, secret, or closed to questioning. That set of management is not democratic. Having a say differs from having a vote. One of the key responsibilities also of a leader is the obligation to be rational. And then he's going into a little bit more of his kind of ground rules for working. He also establishes that in many organizations there's two kinds of leaders. One being hierarchical leader and the other being a roving leader. In special situations, the hierarchical leader is obligated to identify the roving leader, then to support and follow him or her, and also to exhibit the grace that enables the roving leader to lead. Now more into like a lot of these different concepts and how he was able to apply them into the office furniture company of Herman Miller. So his goal for Herman Miller is that when people both inside the company and outside the company look at all of us, not as a corporation, but as a group of people working intimately within a covenantal relationship, they'll say those folks are a gift to the Spirit. Each of us, but especially those with the responsibility for leadership, must be dedicated to making the gift of space available to others. That is space to be what we can be in the corporate environment. In most vital organizations, there is a common bond of interdependence, mutual interest, interlocking contributions, and simple joy. Part of the art of leadership is to see that this common bond is maintained and strengthened, a task certainly requiring good communication. Just as any relationship requires honest and open communication to stay healthy, so the relationship within corporations. Simply asking questions, he is talking kind of now on performance reviews and some tactics and things helpful there. And questions to ask yourself, such as, does Herman Miller need you? Do you need Herman Miller? So just offering more on a career basis there. He also expands upon the idea of a leader being a artful leader, being a servant leader, but then also how do you become a elegant leader? So ideas around some of the things that one would need to understand to do that is contracts are a small part of relationships. A complete relationship needs a covenant. Intelligence and education can ascertain the facts. Wisdom can discover the truth. The life of a corporation needs both. To give one's time doesn't always mean giving one's involvement. Hierarchy and equality are not mutually exclusive. Hierarchy provides connections. Equality makes hierarchy responsive and responsible. Without forgiveness, there can be no real freedom. To act within a group, opportunity must always be connected to accountability. This is not something hopelessly idealistic. Without the promise of accountability, there are no true opportunities and risks. Without true opportunity and risk, there is no chance to seize accountability. It will remain elsewhere. A whale is as unique as a cactus, but don't ask a whale to survive Death Valley. We all have special gifts. Where we use them and how determines whether we actually complete something. Goals and rewards are only different parts of human activity. When rewards become our goals, we are only pursuing part of our work. Goals are to be pursued. In healthy and rational relationships, rewards complete the process by bringing joy. Joy is an essential ingredient of leadership. Leaders are obligated to provide it. Another book, in addition to Leadership as an Art, is Leadership Jazz, he calls. And so just a few different things within that would be, he takes an excerpt and says, I enjoy jazz, and one way to think about the leadership is to consider a jazz band. Jazz band leaders must choose the music, find the right musicians, and perform in public. But the effect of the performance depends on many things. The environment, the volunteers playing in the band, the need for everybody to perform as individuals and as a group, the absolute dependence of the leader on the members of the band, the need of the leader for the followers to play well. What a summary of an organization. A few other kind of thoughts that he articulates within that book to share here on leadership is that a leader should make promises, carry out it considering making balance between the needs of employees and organization. He also mentioned organizations should be aware of preparing the leader. Real preparation doesn't come from a book, but hard work, feedback, and forgiveness. The importance of leaders being fragile precisely at the points of their strengths, liable to fail at the height of their success. The leader should deal with what he defined as God's mix, which much more deeper than diversity it's a matter of authenticity and the element of human worth. Each of us is a part of same family. Each of us is an ingredient in a great cross-culture mix. Sometimes a leader has no choice dealing with change. The only thing to decide is how to deal with change, and he believes that two attitudes will guide us to constructive response to change. First, the leader who leads to change is not your enemy. Second, each of us should become a fanatic learner. He also gives some guidelines on how to approach the process of creative work. He mentions the importance of delegation that requires trust, and trust begins at the top. When the leader speaks the truth and acts in accordance. Trust was a main idea when he talks about the relationship also between leadership and followership. He also asks a main question towards the end of the book that says, do leaders have future? And his answer is yes, but filled with risk and uncertainty. And the institution future depends on the senior people it selected into the present. And a few other quotes to kind of encapsulate his leadership style. So 5 quotes here to summarize. A leader protects creative persons from the bureaucracy and legalism so ensconced in our organizations. Number 2, a leader remains vulnerable to real surprise and to true quality. 3, financial and legal matters are truly important, but they do not lie at the heart of our future. Resist the urge to structure all things alike. 4, cynicism has no place in an organization, but leaders welcome the committed skeptic who wants to be held accountable and demands a share of the risk. Leaders make it possible for creative persons to make something out of nothing. Nothing, that is, but expressions of themselves. Lots of different leadership principles, quotes there to help sum up his ideas. In addition to that, there were some brief failures and challenges that he learned from. Navigating family dynamics in a family business is always going to be there. So learning that through the importance of clear communication, shared purpose, and humility within leadership. Resisting bureaucracy and complacency too. So as Herman Miller grew into a globally recognized company, always a constant risk of that bureaucracy creeping into their operations. Growth and success often led to rigid systems that stifle creativity and innovation. He kind of doubled down on the belief in the participative management and employee empowerment that he speaks so highly of, realizing that leadership is not about control, but about enabling creativity, fostering a sense of ownership, and resisting the temptation to prioritize profits over people. Certainly, a common theme across a lot of the challenges that these leaders face is in the inevitability of financial and market challenges in downturns. So they face that and competitive pressures. The recession of the early 1980s really impacted their performance and forced the company to make some financial difficult decisions there. Really kind of those tough times then really test also your commitment to your values and treating employees with dignity and respect. Transparency and empathy were also critical during the crises. We saw that with the last episode too with Dara Khosrowshahi and what he kind of inherited through Uber and what he had to kind of stick to or kind of change from a culture standpoint there. In addition to that, Max did have 3 key, I would say, mentors. And before we go into the individual mentors, he does have some quotes on his thoughts on mentoring. Mentoring has become for me one of the chief duties of any leader. Being a mentor is both challenging and rewarding. To be a good mentor requires us to take the time to learn a good deal about our mentorees' worlds. It's the only way to be truly helpful. To observe and be part of the wonderful maturations that often take place more than justifies the effort. He was mentored himself by Carl Frost, David Hubbard, and Peter Drucker. He also says that remember that the best way to compensate a mentor is to actually become one yourself. So first one here is Carl Frost. Carl Frost is a renowned management theorist and organizational leader, significantly influencing him, who became a celebrated business leader and author. Frost is known for his pioneering work in participative management and organizational development, emphasizing value of collaboration, trust, and mutual respect in creating effective and humane organizations. Those principles then deeply shaped Pree's leadership, philosophy, and culture at Herman Miller. And so those Pree's writings often reflected those principles, making their mentorship a notable example of how foundational theories can inspire transformative leadership practices. Number 2 here is David Hubbard. He's a theologian and long-serving president of Fuller Theological Seminary, that influenced his leadership philosophy, particularly in integrating faith, values, and organizational leadership. That relationship was marked by shared beliefs in servant leadership, community, and the moral responsibilities of leaders. And the role, really, of servanthood. Hubbard's emphasis on servant leadership aligned with that belief that leaders are stewards of the people and resources they manage. And that inspired Max to create a culture of respect, dignity, and empowerment at Herman Miller. And throughout the mentorship, David helped him articulate and deepen his convictions about leadership as a deeply relational and ethical practice, which became foundational to his contributions as a thought leader in business and beyond. Peter Drucker is the final one here. He's widely regarded as the father of modern management, significantly influencing Max's approach to leadership, organizational development. Although their mentorship relationship was sort of less formal than others in his life, Drucker's insights into management and leadership shaped his practices and ideas. Many of those are including the importance of people in organizations. So Drucker emphasized social institutions as organizations where people are the primary resource resonated deeply with Max. At Herman Miller, Pree prioritized creating a people-centered culture, recognizing that employees are an organization's most valuable asset. Servant leadership, purpose-driven leadership as well, so stressing the importance of clear mission and values in guiding organizations. Innovation and adaptability, too. The ability to kind of adapt to change, create an environment, become known for its innovative designs and practices. Leadership as a liberal art, too. So requiring knowledge of disciplines like philosophy, history, and ethics. Resonated with his broad sort of humanistic approach to leadership. Drucker's influence really on Max can be seen in the way that Max integrated a strong ethical foundation with practical management strategies, creating a legacy of leadership that values both people and performance. So with that, that is episode 41. Max Pree, a lesser known, I would say probably, business leader of the ones that maybe we have studied so far. But I did come across a quote between one of the podcasts I was listening to actually quoted a leader, that first leadership, the first act of leadership is to define reality. The last is to say thank you, and in between it's kind of to serve. That was kind of quoted, and that's what led me to kind of discover the work of Max and read his books and learnings. And so lots of great thoughts on leadership here from Max that continue on through the company as well as through his books and ideas here. So thanks for listening, and we will be back here soon for episode 42. Thanks.